I entered that hospital dragging myself. Breathing was short, as if every breath of air was being forcibly ripped from my lungs. The pain was physical, yes, but what really killed me was the silence of the nurse as she looked at the screen, frowned, and whispered, "Madam, that name is listed as deceased. Many years ago." It wasn't a mistake. She called another colleague, then another. They looked at me as if I were a ghost. And I looked at my own shaking hands, at my bare feet, at the cold sweat running down my back. I was there. I felt it. I hurt. I breathed. But to the world, I had already disappeared. My name was Lucia, with an accent on the I, but in the system, it was just a name crossed out, a canceled identity, a dead woman. I sat for almost 3 hours, with a sheet around my shoulders, listening to whispers, waiting for an answer. A doctor came, took my blood pressure, gave me pain medication, but didn't ask any questions. It was as if my presence was a mistake that no one wanted to face head-on. The pain in my ribs has subsided, but the pain of knowing that someone had erased me, that started to grow there. Someone had registered my death, officially, with date, time, cause, everything. And if I was dead, then who was living my life? Outside the hospital, the day was too bright. That aggressive light that hurts the eyes of those who have spent a long time hidden in the shadows. I walked slowly, my legs feeling wobbly, and sat down on a random bench on the sidewalk. A bus passed by. A couple was fighting in a language I recognized but didn't fully understand. A dog barked. It was the world, carrying on as if I had actually died. And there, on that bench, with the plastic bag in my hands and the hospital form crumpled between my fingers, I understood that my death was not an accident. That had been planned. Someone had decided that I should no longer exist. And the worst part, perhaps I would have agreed with this myself years ago. My name is Lucia Morales. I'm 67 years old. On the outside, I'm just another woman too old for her age. Skin marked by the sun and bad decisions. Hair always tied in a crooked bun. An invisible seamstress in some neighborhood where no one asks many questions. Inside, I am a poorly told story, a sealed file, a name that was once feared and now is not even remembered. For the past 20 years, I have lived as if I were walking on eggshells. He changed addresses frequently. I avoided cameras. I paid for everything in cash. I never signed anything. No contract, no form. When someone asked for a document, I smiled, made some excuse, and disappeared. That was part of the deal, part of survival. But now, everything had noise. A simple trip to the hospital had exposed me, and I knew how these things worked. It was only a matter of days before that information was leaked, until the system started asking questions. Until someone from the past, someone who thought I was dead, realized I wasn't, that I was here, of flesh, bone, and memory. I went home, a tiny room in the back of a paint store, and locked myself in. I sat for hours, looking at an old box where I kept everything that was left of my previous life. Letters, photographs, newspaper clippings, a necklace with a broken pendant, and at the bottom of the box, a sealed envelope with a single handwritten word, emergency. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside were documents that were never supposed to be seen. Copies of a death certificate, with date, signature, state stamp. The cause of death was traumatic brain injury due to a motor vehicle accident. I had supposedly been burned to death. Unrecognizable body, closed burial, no family members. But I knew that was a lie. I knew exactly where I was the night of that accident, and I knew who had helped me disappear. I picked up the phone, the old push-button cell phone. No apps, no history, only numbers saved with changed letters so as not to arouse suspicion. I typed one of them. 3 rings, 4. On the 5th try, I hung up. I took a deep breath. It was better this way. If I talked to him, everything would come back to me. But what I didn't know was that the past was already coming back. The next morning, I found an envelope under the door. No sender, no stamp. Inside, a photo from me, taken upon leaving the hospital, and a note. Dead people don't walk around, Lucia. If you showed up, someone will want to know why. This was more than a threat. It was a warning. From that moment on, I could no longer hide. I could no longer pretend it hadn't existed. I had to decide, or I would be a ghost again, or I would tell everything, the right way, through my mouth, for the first time, and maybe, just maybe, I would find some peace. If you are listening to this story and believe that it is never too late to face your own past, leave a like now, subscribe to the Emoção de Age channel, activate the bell, and comment where you are watching from. Here we show that it's never too late to regain your dignity, even when the world has already left you for dead. The note said that the dead don't walk around, but I walked. I walked because I never had a choice, because since I was 12 I learned that if you stop, someone will step on you. And if you cry, no one comes back to get you. I grew up in a forgotten village, among dirt streets and promises that never came. My mother sold coffee at the station until 4 in the morning, and my father disappeared when I was still confusing nightmares with reality. I took care of my brothers as best I could. I learned to cook before I learned to write. And when the first man touched me the wrong way, I didn't tell anyone, because I knew no one was going to do anything. They would only call me provocative, ungrateful, dirty. School was a luxury that didn't last long. At 13, I was already cleaning houses. At 15, I took care of other people's children while dreaming of what I would never have. At 17, I fell in love with a man who wore a suit, expensive perfume, and called me my queen. He was the first to show me the world behind the facades. He took me to restaurants where I didn't even know the names of the dishes. He gave me a necklace that was worth more than all of my mother's salaries combined. And he was the one who taught me how to lie, with elegance, naturally, with purpose. His name was Daniel, businessman, they said. But I soon understood that it was more than that. He was the bridge between dirty money and the clean world. And I became the woman he needed. Silent, discreet, trustworthy. First, just following along. Then, filling out spreadsheets. Later, signing documents in false names. When I realized it, I was in. So inside that, you couldn't get out. The payments were high. In kind, wads of money arrived in bags, which I kept behind false walls. In 5 years, I had already laundered more than $3 million into that network. He knew the names of the owners, their wives, their children. He knew who was betraying who owed who was going to fall, and who was going to have people killed. And that's why I was worth so much, because I knew too much, and because I never said anything. When I got pregnant with my first child, Daniel disappeared. He left me with a house in the countryside, a full bank account, and the recommendation never to show up again. I obeyed, because I knew that if I opened my mouth, I wouldn't live to raise that baby. It was during this period that I made my biggest sacrifices. I sold the necklace, I sold clothes, I learned to sew from a neighbor, and I raised my son on the basis of fear and protection. I never talked about his father. I never told you about my previous life. And when I had my second daughter, years later, I promised myself that they would never know who I was. But secrets have a smell, a weight, a presence that infiltrates the walls of the house, even when we try to lock everything. And they grew up with fear, with silences, with absences that I couldn't explain. I said I worked with orders, that I sewed at night because the customers were demanding, that I couldn't go to school parties because I had to deliver to an international buyer. All lies. The truth is that I was still part of it. It was still useful. I still laundered money. I still signed things. Only now it was to ensure that my children never went hungry like I did. At one point, I received an offer from a lawyer, a man who knew my files, my past, my importance. He said someone in the circle was about to be arrested and that there was an operation to protect assets. The plan was radical but effective. Simulate the deaths of some key names, disappear from the radar, delete everything. The promise was simple, lifetime protection. I would have a new identity, a new location, a new name, and my children would be protected as long as I never showed up again, never sign anything again, never truly live again. I accepted. The accident was staged on a lightly traveled highway. An unrecognizable body was used, everything paid, everything planned. And so, with a controlled explosion and a signed certificate, Lucia Morales died to the world. But she stayed alive, hidden, shrunken, living among boxes, sewing machines, and nostalgia. My children were placed in the care of trusted people. The truth was told to one. The other grew up believing that his mother had died in a tragic accident. And I saw them from afar sometimes, through the computer screen, through a distant window, or through a friend who pretended she didn't know me. Years passed like this. I paid dearly to keep those who knew silent. And I was always afraid that one day someone would sell the truth. The guilt consumed me. I woke up in with my children's faces in mind. She cried alone, without being able to call anyone. I wanted to go back. I wanted to tell everything. But how to explain? How can we justify years of lies, of absence, of cowardice? There was a night about 10 years ago when I almost went to my daughter's house. She was graduating in law. I saw the photos on the internet. She held her diploma, smiled, surrounded by friends. I stood there, on the other side of the street, with a gift box in my hand and my heart bursting in my chest. But I didn't have the courage. I got back in the taxi and cried the whole way. Now, sitting in that hospital bed, with my name presumed dead and the past knocking on the door, I ask myself, was it worth it? Everything I did was for them, so they could have a life that I never had, but the price was too high. If you're listening to this now, if this story seems impossible, absurd, or far away, think twice. Because many women like me live hidden, erased, forgotten, pretending they died to try to save the ones they love. If this story touched you, share this video with someone who needs to know that those who disappear don't always disappear by choice. And comment below with the word survivor, because that's what I was. For a long time, I didn't live, I just survived. From the moment I found that photo with the threatening note, the world stopped being just an uncomfortable silence. The past was no longer sleeping. He had woken up, hungry, and was coming after me with the precision of someone who has never forgotten. In the following days, I felt the eyes of the street change. Neighbors talked less. The owner of the corner store, who always greeted me, started to look down. Something in the air had changed, and I knew. Someone was spreading my name, a name that shouldn't even exist anymore. I went back to the hospital pretending to have forgotten the medical records. I wanted to see the system up close. I wanted to understand how it had leaked. The attendant looked at me with visible discomfort, as if my presence hurt her. I asked for a copy of the previous service, but she refused. He said that only upon legal request, and he added, lowering his voice, that the authorities were being informed because this case was sensitive. Panic took over my body. This was going further. Someone should have already pulled my real name. The dead woman was about to be officially resurrected, and it wouldn't be pretty. That night, I slept with the door leaning against the inside, a hammer under the pillow. I had nightmares about the sound of tires skidding, about muffled screams, about fire. I remembered the smell of gasoline and the heat of the rehearsed explosion. I remembered the face of the lawyer who held my hand and said everything would be fine. But most of all, I dreamed of my children. I dreamed that my daughter looked at me with her eyes full of tears and asked why I was missing. And I, mute, speechless, just cried. The next morning, I woke up to a knock on the door. 3 knocks, firm. I waited. 2 more. Without identifying the voice, I didn't open it. The sound of footsteps moving away reassured me for a second. But when I looked through the window, I saw the impossible. My son, the oldest, the one who knew the truth. It was there, older, tougher, more distant than I remembered. But it was him. I ran to catch up with him. I called his name in a weak, trembling voice. He stopped. He turned around slowly. The look he gave me was like a blow to the chest. It wasn't anger. It was frozen disappointment. He was holding an envelope. He handed it to me without saying a word and left. I went back inside and opened it. Inside was a single photo, a family reunion. My daughter, my granddaughter, a baby on my lap. Everyone smiling, all alive, all together, without me. On the back, a handwritten phrase. I recognized the handwriting. It was my daughter's. You died to us. Why do you want to come back now? That sentence cut me off, because it was true. I had died to them. And now, when I appeared, I was just an old wound reopening. But I also knew that I wasn't the only one to blame. The entire system collaborated with my absence. And now, he was bringing me back himself. 2 days later, I was approached by 2 men at the exit of the grocery store. They didn't wear a uniform. They didn't identify themselves, but they knew my full name, the real one. They asked about my last registered residence. They asked if I had someone to represent me legally. I lied. He said he didn't know anything, that there was an error. But the look in their eyes said they already knew too much. One of them said something that I can't forget. He said that the dead were coming back stronger than the living, and smiled. It was a threat. Clara. I returned home in a state of alert. I tore up old documents. I burned papers. But I kept the most important thing, the dossier, the sealed envelope with all the evidence of who killed me on paper, and of those who continued to live with it. The next night, I got a call. unknown number. A male voice, Ba Ix, too calm, said it was better for me to disappear again. That showing up would be expensive. That now, in addition to the police, I would have to deal with people who hadn't forgotten what I knew, and hung up. I felt my body freeze. I had the same tremors I had when I was younger again, the same anguish as when I needed to run away the first time. But now, I was different. I had survived death itself. And if they were threatening me, it was because I still had something that scared them. Over the next few days, I started putting everything back together. I organized the papers, I wrote my story, I recorded audio, I made copies and stored them in different places. I got in touch with an old acquaintance, a lawyer who owed me favors. I told parts of the truth. She was in shock, but he promised to investigate the system. He said my death certificate was still listed as active, and that soon she would be summoned, officially. That same week, my granddaughter came to me. He appeared at the gate without warning, shy, nervous. In my hands, I carried an old notebook with clippings, notes, and a photo of me as a young girl, holding a baby. He said he had found it in his father's things, and I wanted to know who I was. If I was that woman in the photo, if I was real. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to tell everything, but I froze. I just said yes, which was me. She cried. He said he missed me even though he didn't know who I was. Since I was little, I felt a void that no one could fill. That was the first time in decades that I cried in front of someone. I felt like maybe there was still a chance to repair some of the damage. But I also realized that now there was no turning back. Justice, the police, criminals, my family, everyone was getting closer. The time of shadows was over. It was time to face everything. If you are following this story and believe that the past always comes back, even if we try to bury it, leave your like now, subscribe to the Emotion of Age channel, and comment here if you believe in second chances. Because sometimes they don't come in the form of forgiveness. They come in the form of confrontation. In the days following my granddaughter's visit, everything that seemed stable began to crumble. The neighbor in the next room, who always offered me hot bread, started avoiding me in the hallway. The looks began to last a second longer than necessary. People whispered when I passed. Even the owner of the store where I sewed said that maybe it would be better for me to take a break. That's when I knew. The article had come out. A local channel published a report with the headline, "Woman considered dead 14 years ago reappears alive and raises suspicions about fraud, disappearance, and money laundering." They used an old photo, one where I was smiling, in a cafe with my son. The image was grainy, but it was recognizable. And next to the article, an interview with my daughter. She didn't know she was being recorded, or maybe he knew, but the words hurt as if they had been spoken looking into my eyes. She said she remembered the last time she saw me, who was 5 years old, and from then on, he built his own life on silence. He said that if I were alive, he would want an explanation, a confession, and he concluded by saying that if I was at fault, I should pay. The worst part wasn't the content. It was the way she spoke, cold. It lasts, like someone talking about a stranger. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the floor of my room and reread every page of my files. I asked myself what still made sense to keep. I wondered who I was, now that I could no longer hide it. The next morning, I received an official notification, a court summons. The hearing would be in 2 weeks. I would have to provide clarifications about my reappearance, my supposed death, and my connection to old documents that were found in the home of a lawyer being investigated for money laundering. Yes, that lawyer. The same one that had helped me disappear. The same one who guaranteed that if I disappeared, my children would be safe. Now, he was trapped. And the files he hid all these years had my name on almost every page. They had me in their hands, but they didn't know everything, and that was what kept me standing. I left the house to try to breathe. I went to a small square, sat on the wooden bench and looked at the sky for a few minutes. A woman approached. Beautiful, well-dressed, firm posture. He didn't ask me for permission. He sat next to me and calmly said he knew who I was. He said he worked for one of the families involved in the old schemes, and it had a message. The message was simple. If I talked too much, someone in my family would pay the price, and he handed me a photo. My granddaughter, leaving school. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break everything. But I just took the photo, put it in my bag, and said that she had just given me the reason I needed to do what I should have done years ago. She didn't respond. He got up and left, as if that conversation, Ursa, had been nothing more than a formality. I returned home with wobbly legs, the face burning. And when I opened the door, I found my son waiting, the same one who saw me on the street a few days ago. He held the envelope tightly. He said he had seen the report, that the sister was in shock, that the family was being persecuted by journalists. And then, with eyes full of hatred and pain, he asked me, his voice cracking, "Why did you leave us? Why did you lie to everyone? We loved you, and you exchanged us for money and cowardice?" That went through me. I tried to respond. I tried to say that I did everything for them, but he didn't let it. He said that if I dared to appear at the hearing as a victim, he would tell the whole truth himself, and left. He left me there, alone, as I always have been. I cried for hours, a cry that came from the spine, of time, of guilt, of the days that don't come back. But that same night, between crying and silence, I got up. I went to the box where I kept everything. I got the documents, the photos, the recordings, and I started to separate everything, item by item, name by name, because I had reached the point where either I told my story or I let others tell it for me. The next morning I looked for the lawyer. I told everything, no filter. She listened to me in silence. Then he took a deep breath and said that, with what I had, it might be possible to turn the tide, but I would have to endure it, that what would come would be worse before it got better. And he asked if I was willing. I said yes, because at that moment, I understood that I could no longer run away, that my name could be written as dead on any paper, but the truth still lived. And if she lived, so did I. If you've been following this story so far, comment below with the word courage, because sometimes courage is not about facing the world. It's facing your own children. It's looking in the mirror and admitting that you made a mistake, but deciding that you still have time to do the right thing. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the Emoção de Velo channel, and share this video with someone who still carries too much guilt to tell their own story. Because sometimes, the greatest forgiveness is the one we need to give ourselves. The decision was made, and this time, it wasn't driven by fear. It was from exhaustion. I was tired of pretending it didn't exist, of walking hunched over on the sidewalks as if apologizing for having survived. He arrives. I wanted my story back. I wanted my name back. And even if it cost me what little I had left, it was a price I was finally willing to pay. That week, I started organizing everything strategically. I gave the lawyer a flash drive with scanned copies of documents, transfers, dates, names, each file with clear title, each folder with dates crossed. It wasn't just a defense, it was a calculated attack. And she understood this the moment she saw the signature of one of the city's current prosecutors on an old receipt, a bribe receipt. Her expression changed, from disbelief to fear. She said it wasn't just a line of defense, it was dynamite. We set up a meeting with a federal prosecutor, a man known for investigating cases of corruption within the system itself. Before the meeting, I stayed in a cold room for almost 2 hours, feeling my hands sweating and my heart racing. When he entered, he didn't greet me right away. He just looked at me for a few seconds and said he had been waiting for that name for years. I told my story without flourish. I told how I got involved, how I disappeared, who helped me, who benefited. He listened silently, taking notes, without interrupting. In the end, I handed over the envelope with the originals, and I added that there was more in case something happened to me. His reaction was short. He said he needed time, but that changed the game. And that for now, I would be under informal surveillance. I left the prosecutor's office feeling lighter. For the first time, I felt that the past had sweaty hands, not me. In the following days, the answer came quickly. One of the names mentioned in the dossier, a retired former deputy, was rushed to hospital with extremely high blood pressure after learning that his name was on the documents. The lawyer called me laughing. He said it was just the beginning, that when the media found out, it would be like an avalanche. It was then that I looked for my daughter, not for forgiveness, but because she had the right to hear the truth from my mouth. I waited for her to get off work. I approached slowly, respecting the distance she always needed. She saw me, hesitated, almost left, but it stayed. I told everything, with pauses, with tears, with all the truths that I swallowed in silence for decades. I said yes, I was wrong, that I lied, that I ran away, but I never stopped loving. She didn't cry, but he didn't turn his face away. When I finished, she just said she didn't know what to do with it all, that I needed time, and he left. But he didn't scream. And that, For me, it was already a sign. The next morning, the press published a new report, this time based on leaked documents from the prosecutor's office. It showed a network of politicians, businessmen, and authorities who had used the disappearance of people as part of a scheme to embezzle money and eliminate witnesses. My name was there, but no longer as a criminal, as a key witness, survivor, main source. I received anonymous messages, some threatening, others supportive. One, in particular, touched me, from a woman who said that her mother also disappeared in the 90s and that maybe my story would help clarify hers. The repercussion grew, and with it, danger. The prosecutor's office offered protection, but I refused for now. I didn't want to hide again. For the first time, I was being heard. View. The press asked for an interview. The lawyer thought it best to deny it for now, but it suggested something I didn't expect. Record my statement, full, on video. In case something happens. It was prudent, but it was also liberating. I went to a discreet studio, neutral light, quiet environment. I sat in front of the camera and started talking, not as someone who gives testimony, but as someone who finally tells their version. I spoke about childhood, of crime, of losses, of the disappearance. I spoke about the children, the grandchildren, the lies, the successes, the mistakes. I spoke of love, of fear, of shame, and courage. At the end of the recording, I felt empty, but for the first time, clean. The next day, I received an envelope under the door. Inside, just one sentence written in capital letters. You talk too much. The lyrics were familiar, and I knew what it meant. It was someone from the past, someone who still believed that silence protected me, but not anymore. If you are still here, if this story is moving you, comment now with the word truth. Because there are moments in life when you can't hold back any longer. The truth doesn't wait. The truth is uncomfortable. The truth sets you free. Leave a like, subscribe to the Emoção de Velho channel, and share this video with someone who is tired of keeping too many secrets. Because everyone carries something that needs to be said. And sometimes, that's what separates pain from healing. The audience room was not like in the movies. There was no glamour, no epic courtroom atmosphere. It was cold, dry, functional, but the air inside was charged as if the entire past had decided to gather in that place. I arrived with my head held high. Simple clothes, hair tied up. The only makeup was the courage that held me back. On the other side of the room, the prosecutor who was now leading the prosecution against the disappearances and money laundering network. Further back, sitting in separate chairs, the names that once dictated my destiny. Businessmen, a former judge, 2 retired politicians. Everyone there because of the documents I handed over, because of the voice that I did not silence. When they called me to testify, the lights seemed to get brighter, the room smaller. But my voice, strangely enough, came through firmly. I started from the beginning. I told how I was enticed, how I got into the system, how I was used, how I signed things that I didn't understand at first, and then I started to understand too much. I told him about the plan for my fake death, how they hid me, how they erased my name and used my silence as currency. As I spoke, I noticed the looks. Some avoided looking, others shot at me with contained hatred, but there were also looks of fear, because now they knew I had nothing left to lose. And those who have nothing left to lose fear no one. At the heaviest moment of the testimony, I showed a folder. It contained cross-evidence between my disappearance and bank transfers linked to shell companies, all with coinciding dates. I presented audios. I handed over the names of the beneficiaries. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about an entire structure created to erase people. The judge listened in silence. The federal prosecutor complimented it with his own documents. And when the hearing ended, everyone's expression was no longer in control. It was panic. At the exit, reporters were waiting. Lights, microphones, voices asking if I regretted it. Reprisals were feared, if I thought I would be forgiven. And I replied that I was not seeking forgiveness, that I just wanted to exist again, as a woman, as a mother, as a citizen. And that the greatest violence was not crime, it was the erasure. In the following days, the repercussion was national. My image made the rounds in newspapers, social media, debate programs. Some called me an accomplice, others from survivors, but no one could ignore the facts. The court's response was not long in coming. Arrests were enacted, accounts blocked, expanded tests, and to my surprise, I was called up again. But this time, to speak not as a defendant, but as a cooperating witness. The term they used was turnkey. My daughter called me after seeing the hearing on TV. Her voice was low, said it still didn't know how to feel, that everything was too much, but that, for the first time, I believed that I was trying to do the right thing. I said my granddaughter wanted to see me. When I hung up, I cried, not because they forgave me, but because, for the first time, the silence between us was broken. The tension still existed. Some people followed me. I got strange looks on the street. The lawyer reinforced security around me. And yet, one afternoon, I found a message written in lipstick on the cafe's bathroom mirror, saying that hell awaited me, that I wasn't supposed to feel saved. I read, I cleaned it, and I continued drinking my coffee, because at that point, the worst was over. There was no threat that made more noise than the truth told in public. The last hearing took place in a larger room, open to the public. There they were all, including my children, sitting in the back, in silence. The prosecution presented its findings. I said that despite my initial involvement, the evidence showed that I acted under coercion and that my disappearance was part of a much larger criminal system. They suggested alternative sentencing, monitoring, and continued collaboration. The judge agreed. The penalty was symbolic, but his words stuck with me. He said that justice is not always able to repair everything, but recognizing the state's error is also a type of reparation. I left that room without handcuffs, no applause, but with dignity. In the hallways, my daughter was waiting for me. For the first time in years, she looked at me like someone real, not as an unresolved memory. There was no hug, there was no crying, but she said she was willing to talk, and that, for me, was everything. If you've been following this far, comment on the word dignity, because there are things that money can't buy, and the truth, even when it arrives late, can reconstruct what seemed lost. Leave your like now, subscribe to the Emoção de Agência channel, and share this video with someone who needs to understand that there is no past that is impossible to face. There are only stories that have not yet been told by those who actually lived. It has been just over 11 months since the last hearing. Time passed without fuss, but inside me, it feels like I lived several decades in silence, and now each day has the weight of a new chance. It wasn't easy, none of that was. But today I can say that I'm alive, not just breathing, but existing with your own name, identity, and choices. And, above all, with dignity. I changed neighborhoods. I took what little I had and rented a small studio in the back of a flower shop. The owner is a lady who doesn't ask questions and loves embroidery. There, I set up my workshop. I sew clothes, repair old pieces, and twice a week, I teach classes for women in vulnerable situations. They are ladies who left the prison system, young people who lost everything, women like me who just want to start over with a little peace. On the wall of the studio, I hung a photo of me at 20 years old, a reminder of who I was and who I almost stopped being. Next to it, the canceled death certificate, that cold stamped sheet that one day denied me the right to exist. Now it is there, not as a shame, but as proof that even the cruelest document can be revoked. My daughter calls me once a week. No hugs yet, there is no intimacy, but there is respect. Sometimes we talk about her childhood, about the questions that remained, about the absences that hurt. I listen more than I talk, because I know that, no matter how much I wish, I cannot erase the marks I left, but I can be here, firm, so I don't make mistakes again. She took me to meet my granddaughter officially. It was a Saturday afternoon. I brought a simple gift, an old book with sewing drawings. She opened it, looked at it curiously, and said that she liked creating clothes for dolls. We spent 2 hours talking about fabrics, buttons, colored threads. When I left, she gave me a drawing. It was a lady with white hair sewing. Underneath it was written, "Grandma." I kept it like someone keeping a miracle. As for my son, the eldest, he still keeps his distance. He sent a letter, 2 pages. He said that forgiving was not forgetting, that he needed to protect his own family, but he didn't wish me any harm, who hoped I would find peace. And in the end, he wrote that maybe one day we would see each other. That was enough for me to understand that he is trying too, each in their own way. In justice, I continue to collaborate with the process. I attend meetings, deliver information. Sometimes I am called upon to identify voices in old recordings. I do this without hate. I do it because it's right. Because now I know that having survived is not enough. It is necessary to participate in the repair. The prosecutor who followed my case told me, recently, that my courage opened doors for other investigations. Other women began to appear, women who were also erased, silenced, threatened. And some of them came to me. They came to my studio. They sat with me. They cried. And for the first time in many years, I cried with them. Not because of pain, but for relief, because I'm not alone anymore. Sometimes I wonder if I would do everything differently. And the truth is, yes. But I can't go back in time. I can only follow, step by step, with my feet firmly in the present. Today, I wake up early. I make my coffee. I listen to old radio. I sew. I laugh with the students. I send short messages to my daughter. Walk around the square on Sundays. And I sleep without fear of the door. For the first time in decades, I sleep with the door unlocked. Little by little, I am rebuilding my relationship with the world, with myself. I still avoid large mirrors. I still look away when I see myself on TV and archival reports. But I accept that that woman is also me, the one who made a mistake, the one that survived, the one who decided to speak. I'm not interested in applause, not even in fame. I just want to live in peace and leave a trail of truth where before there was only a lie. If you've made it this far, if you've followed this story from beginning to end, I ask you one simple thing. Comment now with the word rebirth, because that's what it's all about. Not to return to who we once were, but to be born again with the marks we carry, to find strength in the pieces, understanding that no age stops us from trying again. If this story touched your heart, leave a like, subscribe to the Emotion of Age channel, and activate the bell. Here, we don't tell stories about those who fell. We tell stories about those who got up. Even with the body aching, with the soul tired, with hope hanging by a thread, we believe that it is never too late to regain our own dignity. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video. Because maybe, for that person, it's the beginning of a new chapter. Last week, one of my students asked me if I had forgiven myself yet. She was a 23-year-old girl who was released from prison after serving time for participating in a robbery alongside her ex-partner. She said this while lining up the lines of a navy blue skirt, her eyes fixed on the needle, as if sewing and confessing had become the same thing. I took a while to respond, because to be honest, I still don't know if forgiveness is a door that opens all at once, or if it's a window that you leave ajar every day, waiting for the air to come in slowly. What I do know is that I no longer feel the weight I used to. I no longer wake up with a suffocating chest, nor with that feeling that my life was just a well-played farce. Now what I feel is space, a space that still hurts, but that also breathes. These women who sew with me are different from each other, but they all share something with me. The feeling of having been forgotten, abandoned, taxed for their worst acts. They look at me with respect, but also with suspicion at first, and I understand. I would look at myself that way too. What unites us, deep down, is not sewing. It's the silence we all carry. Different silences, yes, but they consumed us inside until someone said out loud that it was possible to get out of the hole without crawling. We recently received an invitation to put together a small exhibition. It would be in a city library with pieces made by women who passed through the studio. Simple models with hand-embroidered phrases. Phrases like, "I am more than my criminal record," "I'm still here," and "No one erases those who stand up." When I saw the invitation printed with my name as responsible for the project, I felt my legs give out for a moment, because for many years, all they told me was that I needed to stay hidden. And now, for the first time, my name was there, visible, public, in black letters on white paper, an official form of existence. On the same day, I received a call from the public prosecutor's office. The prosecutor informed me that the larger case, the one involving the big shots, was moving forward, and that my evidence was fundamental in unlocking other investigations. He said that, if I wanted, I could attend some hearings, not as an accused, not even as a witness, but as an interested party in the unfolding of the truth. I thanked him, but I preferred not to go, not because I'm afraid, but because my cycle in that type of room has already ended. Now my fight is different. I started writing again. Nothing to publish, nothing big, just handwritten pages about what I saw, what I experienced, and what I never told. I keep everything in a red folder at the back of the closet with a note on top saying, "In case I leave," not out of paranoia, but just in case. because those who survived their own disappearance learn to leave safe traces. From time to time, my daughter visits me. He always arrives with the same closed expression, but now he accepts a coffee. Already ask how I am. And sometimes he talks about work, his daughter, life, simple conversations, but they seemed impossible before. I never said you forgive me, and I never asked. We just live what we can live now, and perhaps this is forgiveness in the form of presence. My granddaughter, on the other hand, is light. It glows when you enter. Talk loudly, hug tightly, ask everything. She wants to know about the past, but with innocent curiosity, not to judge, just to understand. She calls me grandmother without hesitation, and it cures things that even the doctors didn't know were sick in me. The new neighborhood treats me well. They don't see me as a hero, and I don't want to be, but they respect me. And I learned that, after a lifetime of being feared, respect is a way of starting over that doesn't scream, but comforts. These days, I received a letter. No sender. Handwriting. Inside, there was a single sentence. You shouldn't have come back. I read that in silence. I doubled it. I burned. And I went to sleep in peace. Because now I know that for every voice that tries to silence me, there are 10 others listening, learning, encouraging each other. I keep receiving messages over the networks, people who watch the video, people who recognize their own story and mine, women who lived in abusive relationships, children who grew up without understanding why their mother disappeared, men who regretted it too late. Sometimes I respond, other times I just read, but every message reminds me that telling the truth was worth it. And now, at this point in my life, I know I can walk down the streets without lowering my head. Not because I'm a saint, but because I'm finally whole, and there is no silence in the world capable of silencing me again. If you followed this far, leave your like now, subscribe to the Soundy Age channel, and comment with the word integer, because it doesn't matter how many times we have been broken. If we still have the courage to stand up, we are still whole. And if this story reminded you of someone, share it. Someone who may still be living in hiding. Someone who thinks it's too late, because it never is, it never was, and it never will be. Days ago, I sat in the same square where, months before, I had received a silent threat. I remember the bench, the smell of sweet bread coming from the nearby bakery, the fallen leaves around my feet. It was late afternoon, and the sky had that rust color that precedes dark. But unlike other times, I didn't feel scared. I felt presence. It was there, alone, watching people come and go, that I realized how much things had changed. I was the same woman, the same face, the same marks on the fingers of those who have been sewing their entire lives. But inside, it was different. For the first time in many years, I didn't carry secrets on my back, no shame hidden in your purse. I was just there, whole, sitting, breathing the air of a real life. I received a visit from a journalist that week. Young, curious, very polite. She wanted to make a documentary. I said my story could inspire other women. I asked her why she thought someone like me could inspire someone. And she replied that it wasn't because of what I suffered, but because of what I chose to do with the pain. That surviving was important, but that reacting was revolutionary. I smiled with teary eyes. He said he would think about it, not because of fear of exposure, but because now I've learned that not everything needs to become a spectacle. Sometimes just living truthfully is enough. I keep getting letters, some without signature. Others are written in shaky handwriting, full of spelling errors, but with a sincerity that no newspaper text can match. There was one that stuck with me, from a woman who said she raised her children by lying about her own identity. She said that she was forced to flee, that she made serious mistakes, but that after seeing my story, she decided to come back and face everything. Not out of courage, according to her, but out of tiredness of carrying an invented life. I kept this letter with care, because in her, I saw myself. My youngest grandson was born, my daughter's son, a calm boy with attentive eyes. When I held him on my lap for the first time, I felt like life was giving me another chance. Not to start over from scratch, because that doesn't exist, but to continue where I left off, to occupy the space that was always mine, but that I had to abandon out of fear. The exhibition of the studio's pieces took place on a Sunday morning. We arrived early, with our clothes hanging on makeshift hangers. The embroidered phrases caught the attention of those passing by. I saw people stopping, reading, taking photos. Some were crying, others just watched in silence. There were no speeches, no plaques with important names, but there was presence, Ordinary people, like me, who understood the value of a sentence sown with pain and courage. A man with a cane approached. He said he saw my story on television, that he lost his wife because of a judicial error, and that since then he has been carrying anger. But after listening to my story, he was able to look at the world again with less bitterness. He thanked me with a firm handshake and moist eyes. It was in that gesture that I understood the size of what was happening. Yesterday, I thought I was just fixing my life, but without meaning to, I was touching others. The lawyer called me to tell me that some of those involved in the old crimes had accepted deals. Others would be judged soon, and that my testimony would continue as a basis for further investigations. He asked if I still wanted to continue collaborating. I replied yes, not for revenge, but because now, speaking the truth was my job. My social circle has transformed. New people entered. Some of the past are gone. Others reappeared apologizing, offering words they hadn't had the courage to say before. I listen. But today I know how to impose limits. I know who can stay and who cannot cross the door of my life again. I learned this over time, with pain, with the freedom that only comes when we understand that we no longer need to accept crumbs to feel loved. Not long ago, I returned to the school where my daughter studied. I entered through the side gate, like any other visitor. I went to the library. I picked up an old book of short stories. I sat by the window and stayed there for a while, reading slowly. Nobody recognized me, and it didn't even need to. Being there, standing, free, at peace, was enough. Now, when I close my eyes before going to sleep, I don't hear sirens, no threats, not even the sound of the door being locked 7 times out of fear. I hear the sound of laughter in the studio, the noise of the sewing machine, my granddaughter's voice telling me about her high school adventures, my daughter's voice saying, simply, that she passed the competition for assistant prosecutor. And most of all, I listen to my own breathing, calm, deep, real. If you are still listening to this, comment with the word presence. Because for many years, I was just absent. I was the void in the photos, the name that no one said, the face that was hidden in the corners. Today, I am presence, in myself, in mine, in the world. Leave your like, subscribe to the Emoção de Agência channel, and share this story with someone who needs to know that living with dignity is possible even after everything. Because as long as we're here, there's still time, there is still choice, there is still a way. Since I started teaching other women how to sew, something new opened up in me. In the beginning, it was just a way to survive. Then it became a way to connect with the world again. But now it has turned into a mission. And it's not a heroic mission. It has no flag, no title. It is a silent mission, made of thread, needle, and listening. These women who come to me don't want charity. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. They arrive with tired eyes, hunched shoulders, carrying stories that the world preferred to ignore. Many left the prison system. Others fled domestic violence. Some, like me, simply disappeared for a while, swallowed up by lives that didn't fit them. One of them once told me that she had tried everything, but that she felt like a blank sheet of paper too dirty to write anything. I held his hand and said that even stained paper can become poetry if we have the courage to tell the truth. She cried. And that night, he embroidered the word hope on an old blouse that was later sold at the market in the square. We are putting together a collective. Still no name, still no resources, but with the desire to create a place where women with difficult pasts can come together, produce, sell what they create, and, most importantly, exchange experiences. There is something healing about hearing someone else say that they also fell, that they also failed, but that they still decided to continue. The exhibition we held became an article on a national website. Nothing too big, but enough to generate curiosity. A group of university students came to me wanting to help. One of them asked if she could write my name as a reference in a paper on restorative justice. I authorized it. And when she showed me the text, I saw the word inspiration next to my name for the first time. It was strange and beautiful. My studio got a new shelf. In it, I place objects that represent each woman who passes by. A blue button on a children's blouse, a piece of old lace, a handwritten note, a key without a door, a notebook without a cover. Each thing holds a memory, a pain, an overcoming. It is our discreet altar. Nobody prays there, but they all respect it. My daughter, now an assistant prosecutor, helps me as much as she can. No fuss, no exaggerated emotional ties, but with presence. And that, today, is enough. Recently, she invited me to give a talk at a women's rehabilitation center. I said I thought my story could break the resistance of many inmates. I went. I sat across from more than 30 women. Some looked at me with anger, others with contempt, but most with curiosity. I spoke slowly. I didn't try to defend myself. I didn't try to convince anyone. I just counted. When I finished, one of the inmates stood up and said that, for the first time, I believed I could get out of there and not come back. It was like a stone was lifted from inside me. My youngest grandson started walking, and he came to me with open arms. Nobody asked, nobody ordered. He just came. I knelt on the floor and hugged him tightly. For an instant, everything went dark. The pain, the trials, the lost years. It was just me and him. Two lives crossed by an old choice, but now united by the present. I still receive sporadic threats, little provocations, nameless tickets, nasty comments on social media. But I learned not to back down, not because I'm brave, but because I understood that taking a step back today is letting everything return to the silence it was before. And I swore I would never live in silence again. The community where I live has welcomed me with a naturalness that moves me. Nobody treats me like a saint, not even as a criminal, just like someone who came back. That exists, that you're trying. One of the older neighbors told me that I was like a plant that, after withering for years, decided to bloom again without asking permission, and that this was more beautiful than any perfectly cultivated garden. I was recently asked if I am proud of my story, and the answer is no. I'm not proud of what I did, nor what I allowed them to do to me, but I'm proud of what I do now. I'm proud that I didn't give up, of having walked the streets again, having accepted loneliness to rebuild coexistence, of having exchanged fear for service and silence for sharing. If you are listening to this and are still ashamed of what you experienced, listen carefully. You are not just what they made you. You are not just what you allow. You are everything you can still choose to do with what you have left. And that's a lot. Comment below the word seed, because that's what I discovered it was. A seed forgotten beneath the hard earth, but which one day, with a little light, decided to be born. And even though the branches are still fragile, the root is firm. And now, no one starts anymore. Leave your like, subscribe to the Emoção de Age channel, and share this story with someone who needs to understand that flowering does not depend on the season, but on the decision. Because every seed carries within it the promise of a tree. Even if it was buried by the past, the nights are not as long as they used to be. I still wake up from time to time in the middle of the night, my mind racing, memories mixed with the distant sound of a truck passing on the street. But now, when I open my eyes, I no longer feel that weight in my chest. There is no urgency to disappear. There is no fear of being seen. There is only the ordinary silence of ordinary life. And that, for me, is luxury. The Sewing Collective grew. We have a small space provided by the City Hall, simple but ours. There, women enter and leave every day with their heads held a little higher than when they arrived. And I see this as a sign that something is working. Some learn to sew, others just sit down to talk. Many cry in the first week, others take months to say their own name in a firm voice, but all of them, without exception, have a story that deserves to be heard. Recently, a group of foreign volunteers came to visit the project. They brought materials, donated fabrics, helped paint the facade. One of them asked me how I became this reference. I smiled and said I didn't become one, that I just didn't give up on existing. And when a woman refuses to disappear, she ends up being seen even without wanting to. He laughed, and I said that was precisely what made my story important. My daughter organized a meeting with other prosecutors in the region. I wanted to share my experience as part of a restorative justice pilot program. I was in doubt. I didn't know if I should expose myself once again, but I went. I spoke calmly. I explained how justice can not only be punishment, but also recognition, reparation, and listening. I said that not every victim has a face, that many like me are also responsible, but that doesn't mean they no longer deserve a chance to rebuild. They listened. Some were moved. Others just wrote it down. But there, in that environment that was previously so far from my reality, I realized that perhaps my name had stopped being just an error in the system. Maybe now it would be a small part of the change. my granddaughter started to accompany me to the studio. She says she likes the smell of the fabrics, the sound of the machines, the stories she hears while drawing in her notebook. The other day, he wrote a sentence on the board that gave me goosebumps. She wrote in large letters, "My grandmother is made of scars and courage." I read that, and it took me a while to respond. I just walked up to her and said that scars remind us of where we came from, but it's courage that defines where we go. I was asked to write a short article for a community magazine. I reluctantly accepted. Writing for me has always been something intimate, but share I an excerpt from my diary, a piece in which I talk about the feeling of being dead on paper and alive inside. When the issue was published, I received messages from other women who were also declared institutionally dead, some by mistake, others due to abandonment, all with invisible stories. This is one of the biggest learnings of recent times, discovering that there are so many women living in the shadow of their own history, waiting for a moment of listening, of support, of truth, and that, by taking a step, even a small one, we end up paving the way for others to pass. The group meetings became more than sewing meetings. They are spaces for emotional reconstruction. Women who previously wouldn't look anyone in the eye now greet each other with a hug. We've had birthdays celebrated, children reunited, forgiveness asked. What began as a studio became a support network that cannot be explained in words, but can be felt in the eyes of each one of them. There was a day when a lady arrived at the gate of the space. He was over 70 years old. Old clothes, worn shoes, sunken eyes. She said she didn't want to learn how to sew. He just wanted to sit in silence because it had been a long time since anyone had offered him a chair. I pulled one, I made coffee, and she stayed there all afternoon. In the end, he thanked us and said he would come back. The next day, I brought an old blouse to repair. Today, she is one of those who sews the most in the group, and she has already taught others how to make an invisible hem, as she calls it. This is how life has been, made up of small encounters that are worth more than any stage, made of crossed stories, of shared pain, of slow but firm reconstructions. If someone asked me today who I am, I would answer simply, I am a woman who existed in silence, who was forgotten by a system and by people, but who decided to speak out. And as he spoke, he found others who also needed to break the silence. If this story still accompanies you, comment with the word reconstruction, because that's what we're doing, not just with me, but with all of them that, in some way, were erased and now decided to reappear, for strength, for dignity, and for the will to no longer be just names hidden in cold papers. Leave a like, subscribe to the Emoção de Age channel, and share this video with someone you know has thought about giving up on themselves. Because sometimes, all someone needs is a safe place to exist again, and from someone who says in a low but firm voice, you still have a choice. Getting here was not simple. They were silent, invisible years, days marked by fear, doubt, difficult choices, and the feeling of not deserving anything else. There were also months of reconstruction, of relearning, of reappearance. If someone had told me, back then, that one day I would end up telling this story from beginning to end, standing up, in its entirety, I would have doubted it. Because for a long time I believed I had died, even though I'm alive. But the truth is that the death they imposed on me on paper was not the only one. I died in every lie I had to sustain to protect my children. I died a little every time I heard their name being said without me being able to introduce myself as their mother. I died when I walked the streets like a ghost without a past, when I had to escape the mirror, the memories, the questions. I died every time someone looked at me and didn't recognize me. I died, yes, often, but I was also reborn. I was reborn when my granddaughter called me grandmother for the first time, when a woman, who had never seen me before, told me that she managed to quit her addiction after hearing my story. I was reborn when I sewed, with my hands still shaking, the first blouse we sold in the studio. I was reborn when I sat in the audience without lowering my eyes, when I heard my name said out loud as someone who mattered, and not as a mistake. I was reborn when my daughter called me for the first time out of obligation, when my feet touched the floor of a room where I could remain without hiding. I was reborn when I understood that I no longer needed to apologize for being alive. This story is not just about me. It's about all the women who have ever been forced to disappear, that they were judged for mistakes they made, but also for trying to survive the only way they knew how. It's about the mothers who made mistakes trying to protect, about the daughters who grew up without answers, about grandmothers who carry the silence of entire generations. It's about those who had to erase their own history so that others would have the chance to write theirs. If you've listened this far, if you felt something, if you remembered someone, then it's worth it. Because stories like mine are not meant to entertain. They serve as a reminder, to shake, to welcome, to say that even when it seems late, even when time seems lost, there is still room for a fresh start. The pain doesn't go away. The marks do not disappear, but they transform. And it is this transformation that has brought me to this moment. I'm not an example. I'm not an inspiration. I'm just living proof that human beings are more than their worst mistakes. That behind every difficult past, there may be a new choice. That no age is too late to take back what was taken away from you, your dignity. Today, I thank everyone who listened to me. To those who judged me, because they challenged me to continue. To those who supported me, because they gave me strength when I had none. To those who reached the end of this story, because they proved that there is still room to listen with the heart. I thank the women who crossed my path. To those who trusted me with their traumas, their wounds, their hidden memories. You are mirrors and bridges. These are roots that sustain me, and they are flowers that continue to grow, even in arid soil. I thank my daughter for allowing me to be around, even though I couldn't forget what happened. To my son, for his silence, which, although harsh, was never contemptuous. To my granddaughter, for looking at me with non-judgmental eyes. For her, I would have done it all again, but today, I would do it differently. I thank justice, even if slow, even if it fails, for giving me the chance to be heard. I thank life for not giving up on me, even when I had already given up. If you've made it this far, I ask you one last thing. Comment with the word dignity, because that's all I have left. And that's what no one will ever take away from me again. Don't forget to leave your like now, subscribe to the Emoção de Agência channel, and activate the bell. Here we don't tell stories about those who lived perfectly. We tell stories of those who fell, broke, disappeared, but still found a way back. Because starting over is not a luxury, it's a right. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share this video. Because sometimes, all a life needs to change is to hear a truth spoken without shame. Thanks. By listening, for trust, by presence, and may you, wherever you are, never forget this. You are alive. You are here. And that is enough to start again.